Welcome back to Leader Time by FedNet, your podcast source for daily floor remarks by Senate Majority Leader John Thune and Democratic Leader Chuck Schumer. Ever wonder why we don't publish episodes daily? Sometimes they don't both speak, or like yesterday, the Senate convened in the afternoon after caucus retreats away from Capitol Hill. They did both speak on Thursday morning, May 8th. Thune discussed cryptocurrency hours before the Senate took a first procedural vote on the Genius Act, its first attempt to regulate cryptocurrency and stablecoins to reach the floor. The following material is protected by copyright.
Mr. President, it's been well over a decade since the term cryptocurrency entered our lexicon. Like many innovations, cryptocurrencies were at first seen as a novelty, something used by few and understood by even fewer. But that changed quickly. More people began using and purchasing digital assets. Innovation took place, and crypto demonstrated its staying power. Mr. President, stable coins are an important part of the crypto ecosystem. Many digital asset advocates believe in holding Bitcoin given its price fluctuations in growth and value over the last several years. Stable coins, however, have a value that's pegged to an asset, usually the U.S. dollar. They offer the speed and security of the blockchain with the stability and usability of a dollar bill. And they're a business and consumer-friendly way of making payments. Mr. President, hundreds of billions of dollars of stable coins are in circulation today. The vast majority are dollar-denominated. But in the United States, stable coins have operated in a legal gray zone. Stablecoin issuers trying to follow the rules can't be sure what rules to follow. The Biden administration chose to regulate crypto companies by arbitrary enforcement measures. Regulators filed numerous lawsuits against crypto firms, and these hostile actions led a number of U.S.-based companies to consider moving out of the United States altogether. Mr. President, I think we all agree the United States should be the world's leader in financial innovation. Stable coins should be made in the USA, but we can't lead in innovation if there's no clarity for the innovators. The Genius Act provides that clarity. It's the first step in bringing digital assets into our financial system by setting a clear framework for stablecoins. To be clear, Americans are already using stablecoins and will continue to use them with or without this legislation. What this bill does is establish a framework that protects consumers and safeguards national security while promoting that innovation right here in the United States. The Genius Act would implement light touch and tailored standards for stablecoin issuers so consumers can trust who they're doing business with. Reserve requirements would give consumers confidence in the value of the stablecoins that they hold. And the bill's enforcement provisions would provide companies with clarity on what the rules are and ensure accountability for any violations. The Genius Act would also protect against national security threats and money laundering. Stablecoin issuers would be held to the same standards as other financial institutions subject to the Bank Secrecy Act. They would need to monitor and report suspicious activity. They would have to comply with U.S. sanctions. And they would have to block transactions that violate state and federal laws. Mr. President, stable coins are operating today without any of these requirements. And not passing this bill means allowing the status quo to continue. No consumer protections, no national security safeguards, and the risk of arbitrary enforcement actions from financial regulators. Passing this bill is also about American strength. It would create demand for the U.S. dollar and for treasuries. That's a good thing, both for our national security and for our fiscal house. Mr. President, this bill is the product of bipartisan consensus building. I'm proud of the process that this has gone through, and I'm grateful to Senators Lummis, Hagerty, Gillibrand, and also Brooks for their leadership on this issue and their work on the bill. Chairman Tim Scott has also been a critical member of the team. The Banking Committee held a 3-hour markup during which the committee considered 40 amendments to the bill. That bill was reported out by a vote of 18-6, with 5 Democrats supporting it. But the work didn't end there. Bill sponsors have been meeting for weeks, including nights and weekends, since the markup to address changes that make this bill better. Today, we're voting on the sixth version of the Genius Act, drafted with input from both Republicans and Democrats. And if senators would like the opportunity to make further modification to the bill, I encourage them to vote for cloture. Once we're on the bill, we can discuss changes here on the floor. We've had an open process on this bill so far, so why stop now? Mr. President, the Genius Act is by no means the last word on digital assets. I expect the Senate will continue to work in this space, including work toward market structure legislation to address features of the crypto market that are not captured solely by stablecoins. But the Genius Act is a first step toward bringing digital assets into our financial system and promoting American leadership in financial innovation. We have the opportunity to move the ball forward today. And, Mr. President, I encourage my colleagues to take it.
Schumer focused his remarks on tariffs, a just-announced trade deal between the Trump administration and the United Kingdom, and anti-Semitism.
Mr. President, Donald Trump's trade war is a gut punch to the American people. It's the biggest tax hike on families in a half a century. If Donald Trump is going to tax the American people, they have a right to know precisely how much. So today, I am introducing legislation with Representative Raskin requiring retailers to show consumers precisely how much tariffs are increasing the prices of their products. It's no different than when your utility bill shows fees or a receipt shows if a service charge is included or not. Specifically, the legislation that Representative Raskin has introduced in the House and I am introducing in the Senate requires large retailers to display in a, quote, clear and conspicuous way the amount that tariffs contribute to a good's final price tag. Our bill is about transparency. It's about being straight with consumers. It's about informing the consumers how Donald Trump's tariffs will impact the family budget. And retailers should like it because these increases in prices are not their fault. It's Trump's fault with his tariffs. And so let the public know, and that is secondary benefit. That will make the public even more angry, and they may call their Republican senators and congressmen and say, join with Democrats and pass some of our legislation that would repeal some of these tariffs. The White House growls that companies with the audacity, they said, audacity to be honest with consumers about the cost of tariffs are being hostile and political. But this is not hostile or political at all. It's simply honest. It's with consumers. It's clarity. It's transparency. It's a smart policy. So, of course, the White House opposes it because they don't want people to know how much these tariffs are damaging them. It's estimated that if the present tariffs go into effect, the average family will pay $4,000 more. Well, we want them to let them know where it's how much the price is increased for food, for housing, for gasoline, for groceries, for prescription drugs. Last week, for instance, Ford announced they're increasing the price of at least 3 models by as much as $2,000, in part because of Trump's tariffs. Under our bill, that $2,000 price hike should be spelled out to consumers as, in reality, what it is, a tariff tax. Americans deserve to know who's picking their pockets. Our bill will make clear to the American people that Donald Trump's tariffs are a painful tax eating away at their hard-earned money. It'll make clear to the American people that Donald Trump's promise to, quote, lower costs starting on day one is a mirage, a fiction, a cruel fiction, all for a chaotic tariff policy that is sending our economy into a tailspin. Now, on those tariffs themselves. Today, Donald Trump is set to announce a new supposed trade deal between the United States and the UK, the United Kingdom. We're still waiting to get the details, but this much is clear. Whatever Donald Trump's announcement with the UK looks like, it isn't a triumph of strategy. Rather, it's a product of chaos. And with this president, if past his prologue, who knows if this deal will actually stick? This is the Trump administration's credo. Government by chaos. Just look at how Donald Trump is dealing with Canada, and it tells you everything you need to know about how untrustworthy his UK announcement is. First, Donald Trump says yes on tariffs with Canada. Then he says no. Then he insults Canada, calls it the 51st state. Moments later, he meets with Prime Minister Carney and says Canada loves us and we love Canada. No one knows what Donald Trump will say next. If this were a roller coaster, the whiplash would paralyze everybody involved. So American businesses, American consumers have no faith that the president has a design. Whatever's in front of his face that day, whatever pressure there might be on him, he reacts. And it doesn't matter if he said completely opposite thing a day or a week earlier. Early this morning, members of the president's own cabinet are already lowering expectations of the deal, saying it's only an agreement in concept. There's a lot of details to be worked out, and we know what happens when that happens, particularly in a Trump administration. Donald Trump's new trade deal with the UK seems to be built entirely on quicksand, is likely to be built on quicksand. He blows with the political winds. When people say he's too reckless, he backs off. When there is criticism of him backing off, he reintroduces the bill. So it'll be hard to take anything the president says about this deal seriously because in all likelihood, he will change his mind again. On anti-Semitism. This morning, the Anti-Defamation League issued a new report illustrating a disturbing trend I've been warning about, the rise of anti-Semitism in America. Specifically, this report looked at anti-Semitism towards Jewish members of Congress, which has dramatically risen, something I can attest to firsthand. Social media has become a breeding ground for anti-Semitism. But it's not just elected officials. Social media has become an easy way for hate groups to organize and proliferate their message against all sorts of communities and individuals. They go after Jewish-owned businesses. They go after synagogues. They go after families. They direct anti-Semitic slurs even against individuals who might not be Jewish. We must not allow anti-Semitism to grow unabated in America like wild weeds. As the great poet Conor Cruz O'Brien said, anti-Semitism is a light sleeper. And when there's trouble, somehow anti-Semitism always pops its head up. The Jewish people being made as scapegoats, as we have been for centuries. It must be confronted at every instance. It must be rooted out. We all play a part in fighting back against the forces of intolerance. People of all backgrounds, faiths, beliefs, and opinions have a duty to stand up and speak out against hate, no matter where it comes from. Now on the Trump budget. If you asked AI to come up with a federal budget that utterly screws over average Americans, you know what the AI would come up with? Donald Trump's latest budget proposal. So today, let's look at Trump's so-called skinny budget a little more closely. It's hard to believe that this is a serious proposal. If enacted, Trump budget would completely gut public safety, sometimes something they say they want to strengthen. Trump's own FBI director, Kash Patel, one of the most loyal Trumpites, testified in the House yesterday that, quote, that the FBI can't meet its mission to keep Americans safe with the cuts in the Trump's budget. If Kash Patel, one of Donald Trump's most loyal acolytes, says this budget won't work, who else is going to come out against it? How can we take this budget seriously? If Patel is against it, so will many other cabinet officers, publicly or privately. How carefully was it even done? Did the people who put it out know they're slashing the FBI? The budget has sloppy and reckless written all over it, and even Kash Patel agrees. And that's not all. The Trump budget would also strangle American families. It's an all-out assault on American health care. Under Donald Trump's budget, America's housing crisis would go from bad to worse. Hell will freeze over before Democrats entertain anything remotely close to Trump's budget. This budget proposal is dead on arrival in the Senate, and anything close to it will go nowhere as well. On Medicaid and CBO, the Republicans right now are struggling with a very basic idea that the truth sometimes hurts. In their case, the truth is that Republican policies are so deeply unpopular with the American people, Republicans are realizing that, and it's left them paralyzed. Now that Republicans actually have to produce a bill, reality is catching up with them. No more bland words, no more words, don't worry, we'll protect you. The budget shows what they're actually up to. Yesterday, the CBO reported that no matter which scheme of Medicaid cuts Republicans are likely to choose, the result will be that millions will become uninsured. Republicans can try in any way to make their bill work, but their numbers just don't add up. There's no way for Republicans to accomplish their massive tax giveaways without devastating millions of working people, middle-class people. Even if the Republicans pass a fraction of their proposed Medicaid cuts, it still means millions will lose their health care. And for what? So that billionaires can get another tax break that they don't need at a time of high inflation and a possible recession? That's the definition of cruelty. This is the fundamental problem Republicans are facing right now as their infighting continues, that their policies are deeply, deeply unpopular with the American people, not just blue state Republicans, but purple and red state Republicans too. Telling the American people that you want to axe their health care so that extremely rich people can pay less in taxes is a horrible message that virtually hardly anyone in America agrees with. But that is precisely what Republicans are trying to do, so it's no surprise they're eating their own tails trying to figure out how to proceed.
Stay tuned to Congress as debate on budget reconciliation, and yes, cryptocurrency legislation evolves. Incidentally, the motion to limit debate on a procedural move was defeated, but Leader Thune voted no to allow a second attempt. Leader time and pressers are provided only for informational and educational purposes. Unauthorized reproduction, distribution, or use of this episode without expressed written permission from FedNet is prohibited. Thanks again for listening.